Lumbridge is probably one of the most iconic towns in old school RuneScape. In this series, I will be working to build a scale model of it. For those new to the series, and to those returning, welcome. I really appreciate all the support we've received on the series so far. In case you don't remember, this model is approximately 56 tiles across and 72 tiles long. I felt like this captured the main part of Lumbridge while keeping the model to a manageable size. The scale of the model is 1 to 192, and as you watch I will be explaining some of the modeling process as well as giving some interesting lore about the area that I'm working on. Today, I'll be working on the Lumbridge castle walls as well as adding some of the citizens of Lumbridge. So I've finally made some progress on the Brick Cutter 2000. It is not completely finished, but as you can see, it will not require any blood offerings like the Brick Cutter 1000 did. I already had several strips of foam cut out that will make up the walls, and I went ahead and scored each side using the Brick Cutter 2000. I then took a regular ballpoint pen and traced along each of the lines to define the embossing. Next, I painstakingly cut and embossed each of the bricks. For those that are curious, there will end up being roughly 24 inches of wall on the model, so with 7 rows of bricks on each side and each brick being approximately 1/4 of an inch wide, I ended up embossing just over 1,300 bricks. You may also notice that I have made an artistic decision to make the crenulations square, even though in the game they are made up of numerous tiny crosses. It just wasn't really feasible to do that on this small of a scale. Taking a break from embossing bricks, I moved to working on the numerous citizens of Lumbridge. Using some 1 to 200 scale train figures that I had purchased as a base, I took some 2-part epoxy that many hobbyists commonly refer to as green stuff, and used it to add capes, hats, and beards to some of the figures. I haven't ever actually used this epoxy putty before, so I quickly discovered as I tried to roll it out that it wanted to stick to the cutting board. So I ended up sticking some on the figures, then pulling it off to create a thin cape-like effect. After struggling for a while, I was able to create some passable effects on many of the figures, and use some small pieces of wire to create stabs on several of them. Once the epoxy putty dried, I gave them all a coating of black primer to get them ready to paint. Hopefully at this point you've figured out that I'm painting Nigel, the Dead Man Tutor. You can find him roaming around in the Lumbridge graveyard, and he will give you various information about Dead Man mode. And if you have some blood money laying around in your bank, you can use it on him and he will give you a piece of Dead Man armor, which is purely cosmetic. Now that I have some paint on them, you might be able to tell who a few of them are now. Keep in mind these figures are extremely small, only measuring 3/8 of an inch or 9.5 millimeters in height, so it'll be some sacrifice of detail at this scale. I probably could have gotten a little more detail, but there sometimes comes a point when you're building a model that you need to ask yourself, have I captured the essence of what I'm trying to model? If the answer is yes, then it's time to move on, because sometimes you can get so bogged down focusing on the tiniest of details that you won't ever finish the piece. I was able to finish embossing the wall sections over several days and began to mock up and glue the wall together on the model. Once all the wall pieces had dried, I took it off the model and gave it a coating of Mod Podge, being careful not to break the wall. The Mod Podge will help protect the foam and embossings, as well as give some additional rigidity. I then cut the door opening at the back of the castle wall. Leave a comment if you remember a time when this door didn't exist. You had to run all the way around to get to the back of the castle. This doorway was added on October 9th of 2014 as a quality of life update to make the tree farming patch more accessible. With the Mod Podge dry, it was time to prime the wall black to get it ready for dry brushing later. While I waited for the primer to dry, I had several trees to make. If you've been following the series for a while now, you've seen me make trees in nearly every episode. I take and twist a small length of wire into the general shape of a tree before dipping it into Mod Podge to smooth out the trunks. While the trees dry, I went ahead and utilized a painting technique called dry brushing, where you take a very small amount of paint and dust it onto the model, so it only highlights the raised details of the embossing. I stuck several pieces of wire into the board that will help strengthen and support the wall when I glue it in place. It's really starting to look like a true castle now. With the wall in place, it was time to attach all the citizens to the model, starting with Count Check, who can give you advice on securing your account, and if you have not yet entered the Stronghold of Security, he can provide you with a one-time teleport there. Next we have Hadius Cosantes, who will give you your rewards for completing the Lumbridge Drainer Diary. His outfit is worth roughly 1.3 bill, and he claims to have obtained it all from only 3 clue scrolls. Then there is Phileas the Lumbridge Guide, and he can provide new players with useful information. The Doomsayer, who you can speak to about toggling warning messages. Hans, who can cheerfully tell you how much of your life you spent on old school RuneScape. The Iron Man tutor, Adam, who you can talk to about getting Iron Man armor, as well as downgrading your Iron Man status. Next we have the 3 combat tutors, Harlan, Makasi, and Namarti, who can provide new players with some starter combat gear. Harlan can also sell players who have achieved 99 defense, a defense skill cape. Wilfred, the woodcutting tutor, he will provide you with a bronze axe and tinderbox if you don't already have them, and he will also sell players a woodcutting skill cape if they have achieved 99 woodcutting. Then there's Donnie, a local farmer who can tell players where to find quests that train cooking and combat. The League's tutor, who runs the League's reward shop. And lastly, I put in several women and men. A couple of honorable mentions include Adventurer John, which I did not know was there because I've been mapping Lumbridge out on my Iron Man, and it turns out he's not visible to Iron Man. And then there's Guy, which is basically a male version of Donnie, who will give players information on quests that train cooking and combat. With everyone glued in place, it was time to finish the last trees of the model. For those counting, I have made a total of 45 trees, including the canoe tree. If you were to cut down each one of these trees once in-game, you would receive a total of 1,397.5 woodcutting experience. With basically everything in place, there are two final pieces that still need to be made, the fountains. I had a small scrap piece of walnut laying around, so I went ahead and turned a couple of tiny fountains on the lathe. After priming them black, I went ahead and gave them both a quick dry brush paint job to create that stone effect, then painted some water on them, which I then coated in gloss Mod Podge off camera. And with that, we are one step away from completing this awesome model. I think the tiny Lumbridge citizens really gave this model some life, and I can't wait for the big finale. If you enjoyed watching the model making process and are interested in watching the town of Lumbridge grow, all while learning the interesting facts and lore surrounding this town, go ahead and like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.